I had initially dismissed the Nurgling Palanquin mount as not worthwhile for the Herald of Nurgle and for the Plague Ridden, because it doesn't make them any faster, and most importantly, when they're not on the Palanquin, they can get knocked down relatively easily, and it takes them quite a long time to stand back up. Now, that being said, I've kind of come around a little bit. I do think in matchups where you don't necessarily have to fight a monster of size and strength that's going to be knocking them down a lot, it can be advantageous for a number of reasons. Primarily, you get a whole bunch of extra HP, and most importantly, armor. Puts them up to 80 armor, and as a result, they'll take a lot less damage from those incidental hits from, low-tier, non-AP units. Against a faction like Kislev that has some AP tools, it definitely can matter. More importantly, that extra HP lets them trade much better with the bear characters, and again, the bear characters tend not to be of a power level that you would need your guy to get knocked down in order to have that extra protection. Anyway, I'm up against Red Salamander. My patron here recently joined my patronage, has been an awesome pillar of the community for quite some time, and today we're going to be practicing a little bit of Nurgle versus Kislev. I've got the Herald and Plague Ridden together. Plague Ridden's got Lore of Death. You can't see his specific loadout. We'll get to that once we get to the battle, but a couple of Forsaken, a couple of Plague Toads, a couple of Nurglings to start, a Cultist, 3 more Nurglings, 2 more Forsaken, 2 more Toads, couple of Rot Flies, 2 Beasts of Nurgle to help counteract Sleds, single Plague Bear, and some Furies. Constantine leading the way. His fire damage and overall tankiness makes him very good in this matchup. Zargard, same thing. You might not think they're good in this matchup, but that 50 melee defense and 90 armor makes them very tough for Nurgle to deal efficient damage to, other than like magic, for example. But in general, them and the armored Kossars both are going to be pretty good options in order to just hold objectives here. Some regular Kossars to round out the starting army. Frost Maiden of Tempest in reserve. We've also got Little Grom, couple of Griffin Legions, couple of Ice Guards for good magic DPS. Zargard and Armored Kossars, more of them, and a tasteful 2 Light War Sleds. Let's get into the battle and see. We're on the crossing of the Sea of Claws map, and you can take a look at the Plague Ridden there. He's got the melee attack buff, and I believe I also have Aspect of Dread Knight to give me some source of terror in this build. Believe it or not, the demon factions actually lack access to cheap forms of terror. I do think perhaps that they could give, like, the Beast of Nurgle, for example, terror. It wouldn't be that much of an issue. I mean, it's something on a similar level to a power level like a Manticore, right? But anyway, Palanquins, not only are they awesome, you can see that they are being lofted about by 2 stacks of Nurglings. A little double-decker Nurgling sandwich there. And yeah, that does allow, again, them not to get knocked over. Extra mass, armor, all that jazz. In terms of spells here, yeah, it looks like Spirit Leech and Aspect of Dread Knight, along with this melee attack buff, I feel is pretty important for Nurgle because generally they lack that offensive output. We're just going to get this force down onto the center. The Toads are hanging back for the time being. We're going to bring in some additional Nurglings, start to put together a force to try and slow push. The idea here is with Nurgle, as with Cathay, you want to make sure you bring your units in groups, not try and, go in piecemeal where your slow units will get isolated and taken out relatively easily, especially by a more mobile faction like Kislev. Although Red Salamander here doesn't have a lot of mobile units initially in his starting army, certainly has the capacity to dish them out, but Nurgle Forsaken looking very cool, all rusty and sickly and gross. And of course, the Nurglings having an absolute ball. Palanquins stacking it. Could you imagine? Those have got to be some swole Nurglings down there. Not quite as swole as the ones under Kugath's chair, but definitely quite swole. We're going to get into combat here. Just try and secure the center objective. Start tanking out some damage. Kossars, armored Kossars pouring in some fire. I've got the Toads up and around and coming down through the canyon. Some Zargard and regular Kossars also moving to secure this objective. The Zargard in particular, once they get onto the objectives, it's going to be relatively hard for me to dislodge them. Something like a Great Unclean One, Exalted Great Unclean One, rather. The AoE damage, sort of Mortis effect on that, obviously could be good against Zargard. Just generally, the Stream of Corruption, other magic spells from Nurgle can definitely be effective against them, but Regardless, that high armor, high defense combination, at least right now, is tough for Nurgle to get through, and Nurgle definitely needs their warrior units and other mortal units, more so than other factions, I would say, definitely. In particular, like warriors with halberds, warriors with great weapons, some more AP infantry. Hopefully they get chosen of Nurgle as well. I would honestly be pretty disappointed if they didn't get, if all the Chaos factions didn't get at least one variant of chosen each. Anyway, nice pitched engagement here between all of these infantry. It's not going to go particularly well for those Forsaken fighting against Zargard with the support of some Kossar missiles. And same thing over here, like the Nurglings are not necessarily doing great, but we've now got some Rotflies in here doing some damage. More Nurglings just getting clobbered by the Griffin Legion. The Griffin Legion here, the thinking from Red Salamander is that their higher stats and armor will help them take less damage, and they'll hit a little bit harder against Nurgle units. So far, it's proven very effective as he's able to clean up my flanks pretty decently there. The Rotflies and Nurglings all going down, but meanwhile in the center, the slow grind is starting to favor me a little bit as we do get some healing out of the Nurgle boys. Plague Ridden on his Palanquin, moving over to engage Costal Theme. We can see a little bit of a pitched duel here between these two. The Nurgle characters have AP anyway, right? Whether they're on foot or on the Palanquin. But the Palanquin just kind of lets them contest against a horse-sized character a little bit more efficiently. Not going to get bullied and knocked around as much, whereas it's probably a good thing in this type of situation. Here we put Aspect of Dreadnought on the Herald of Nurgle. I'm trying to get a Terror out if I can, but unfortunately those Armored Kossars did just hit their passive right before I was able to Terror out them. So, good stuff for Red Salamander here. On objectives, I have managed to secure the center, but those Griffin Legions down there, securing the low ground. On the high ground, same thing. I've been absolutely cleaned up, so that's not great. Definitely looking pretty rough in this initial phase. But as long as I can continue to sustain some units here, we did get an upgraded Fleshy Abundance AoE heal on these Forsaken here. We've got some more Rotflies. The Toads also helping to make a big push right now. And of course, these two characters are going to be quite strong fighting in this blob over time. A little bit of a kick to the face. Watch some of the animations up close on the Palanquin. It's just like the fat guy chair. I don't know. The fat guy fighting from the chair. It's like if I was, you know, sitting at home on my couch with the remote in my hand and pretending like I'm fighting in the battle. That's probably something what I would look like, right? Anyway. Fun stuff. Zach might actually secure this center objective from me here. Red Salamander doing a great job just holding down the fort for the time being. I do have quite a bit of supply banked up, though, and I'm starting to make a push over on the left flank with Beast of Nurgle and some Nurglings, some Forsaken as well. The Beast of Nurgle and the Forsaken in particular will trade well into the Griffin Legion just because of the way the cavalry interactions work right now. Similar to before the cavalry beta in Warhammer 2, countercharging high charge infantry into cavalry actually works quite well, so I'm going to be relying on these Forsaken, especially with the Beast of Nurgle providing actual armor-piercing punch in that type of engagement, but Zach wisely avoiding here and just moving up and around. As in the center, this grind continues to unfold. The Forsaken normally wouldn't be a very tanky unit, but you can see they've healed a substantial amount of HP already, just due to the Fecundity, due to the Locus of Fecundity, and that Fleshy Abundance. Lots of heals and able to sustain them. Same with the Toads and other units here. Nurgling's also getting quite a bit of healing. So the fact that I'm able to just keep these units going on the center is pretty important. Zach's not too far ahead on points yet. Yeah, it's not so far out of reach for me, and especially I'm able to secure now this low ground objective to keep from getting too far behind. At the same time, I'm just far enough behind that I'm going to start getting some catch-up supply, so that should help me get back if I'm able to bring the units to bear quickly enough. That is a problem with Nurgle, obviously, is you do lack mobility generally to get your resources onto the objectives quickly enough to recapture them, but let's see. For the time being, the character fight continuing here. Herald of Nurgle doing just fine. Looks like we've got Little Grom summoned in and some Ice Guards. Ice Guards have actually used up quite a bit of their ammunition already. Value have they generated is the question. Let's take a look here. Not too much. I think they've mostly been shooting like plague toads, which granted, plague toads are quite cheap considering what they are. Relatively cheap mobility unit. Another big AoE heal gonna go down. Get these Forsaken. Both the characters themselves. The fact that this Fleshy Abundance upgraded has no max targets, unlike Invocation of Nehek, makes it one of those most powerful heals we've seen in Total War Warhammer. You can see also with that Locus of Virulence, all these units do have enough attack that they can actually make contact consistently with the Zargard. Even still, the Zargard are actually tanking that quite efficiently, and I still don't have enough capture weight to actually outweigh here and capture that center objective. So, looking a little bit rough here. Armored Kossars still just chilling over on the side. I'm going to put together a force of Nurglings, though, to just go bog them down and see if we can't at least out-capture them, even if we don't necessarily win that engagement in any kind of quick, decisive manner. The Griffin Legion also just kind of hanging around here for a good opportunity to get a rear charge, and it looks like they will sort of find it. I don't know. This is an issue. I mean, you can see how all of the infantry is just sort of filtered in around the toads. The fact that they do throw enemy infantry models around so much leads them to have this kind of very loose engagement at times, but the fact that the two Nurgle characters are also kind of back-to-back, or face-to-face rather, fighting Constantine, they've been able to do a ton of damage to him, and they're both surviving quite well. No problems really in terms of HP loss there. They can continue to just hold and provide a nice little anvil. The hammer of the Rotflies coming down from the sky. Get on those Griffin Legion. They don't have too much attack, but 16 attack, or 16 charge on 31 attack is enough to make contact with Griffin Legion, certainly. At least in a little bit there. Also, for my units, got some Forsaken just moving up to kind of bottle Red Salamander up in his deployment as much as I can. I really need to start being able to out-capture weight him, and in order to get that greater capture weight, I have to hold his units. Like right now, he's got these ice guards that, you know, probably could even try and move up and stand close. Like, if we look at where the objective marker is, this little corner right here, you could come and stand right here with those ice guards, and they would still add their capture weight while also being able to fire in, you know, relatively close. They might get engaged in melee a little bit, but they're ice guards. They will be able to trade okay into a number of different units, right? And same thing like over here, you could come in, just outmaneuver and try and get around and onto this objective number 3. But for the time being, the center, he is continuing to hold. The force of Nurglings I sent out here, again, just by weight of capture, having more units here, more models of infantry. Well, technically more units of infantry with all their models still intact is a better way of putting it. But the Kossars are going to get outnumbered here, even with the support of the Griffin Legion. Got the Rotfly is also kind of annoying in here, so it's not going to be an instant capture, but we should be able to cap it. The problem is, Red Salamander's close enough to winning that I actually do have to 3-cap at this point, and this is a point where he's faced with a pretty critical decision. He needs to only really hold one objective at this point, and, you know, kind of these Griffin Legion over here, like he's got these other Kossars moving over to try and help save this objective. Really, all of his forces need to, and this is something we talked about, obviously, in our practice session, but all of his forces really just need to concentrate on holding this one center objective at this point. And then he could probably stave me off and hold for the win with just the one objective there, because I still technically haven't even captured in the center, but I am just about to do so. The Nurglings, the Forsaken and everything, Zargard are trying to get back, get into a position to continue to hold, but I was able to just barely get the capture in, so now he's no longer achieving any tickets. I have achieved the full 3-cap. Let's see if I can hold it now. The Zargard are definitely going to be tough to dislodge, but the fact, again, that the range units are standing back, they are dishing out extreme damage, it must be said, although my one cultist is bogging down that unit of ice guards there, just holding them in place, not allowing them to fire, which is definitely quite useful. Little Grom firing in from the distance there, trying to take out the characters on Palanquins. It looks like the Ice Guards are also firing. Again, they're almost out of ammo. It looks like they did actually just run out of ammo, so they can now move in and try to secure the capture as well. These other Kossars, armored Kossars moving over. Again, this is sort of a little bit of a doomed endeavor to try and recapture this. Really just needs to go all in for the center objective. I mean, once I get close enough, like I'm almost close enough now to where he would potentially need to actually 2-cap. again, but being able to just hold these units at bay, sort of away from the objective. The Toads are going to move in and just wreck these Ice Guards here in melee. They are not the glaive variant, so although the Toads will take some damage in return, certainly they'll be able to dish out pretty heavy damage there very cost effectively. Cannon also firing in that little Grom. The sleds also brought out a little bit late. It's another sort of, I guess, macro level decision, right, in order to have some additional punch. Maybe it would have been better to try and bring the sleds out just a hair earlier. That being said, my Plague Bro, the Herald of Nurgle, is taking a ton of damage from the Kossars and from Little Grom and just a bunch of different sources. He can get focused down. I mean, 6,000 HP base is quite a bit. It's not the most. It's definitely enough that he can try and hold, but it looks like we've got that Fecundity army ability there to heal him. Also hits the Plague Ridden and the Forsaken there, so they can get back up to snuff. The hold for the Plague Lords. Plague Lord, I don't know. It's fun. It's a fun time for sure. Except if you're Kislev, I guess. But over on the other side here, just again moving up these forces that had secured that objective to try and play much into the deployment zone as I can to not allow those units to get in and recapture. There is a recapture attempt going on with the sleds down on this low ground objective, but it's not going to be able to probably get it in time. I've got just Nurgle Furies down there, which is, I mean, they literally cannot capture, so they're quite easily going to get outcapped by the sleds here. You can see the flag now ticking up, so once that is capped, that will be one objective, but still, I was able to pull ahead during that time, during that 3 cap, and it's now unfortunately looking like it's going to be tough for Red Salamander to get back in this fight. So Caster also brought out a little bit late. I don't know, honestly, if the Caster would have made that much of a difference. You know, when we were doing our patron practice session, I had pointed out, like, oh yeah, if you forgot to break out your Caster. I don't know, again, how much of a difference it would have actually made. The Kislev magic isn't particularly impactful in this matchup. Certainly it would have helped, but anyway. Fun stuff. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching that one. Quite happy with how the Palanquins were able to hold out and also fight against Constantine. We're able to limit his damage value quite substantially. Because he had taken so much damage, it wasn't easy for him to get in and use his flaming buff, right? His flaming damage buff. He does have to be in melee for it to be active, so you can damage him enough to where he doesn't want to come engage in combat, then sort of avoid that. Zargards did very well, though. I mean, I know some people aren't really a fan of Zargards, but they definitely perform in the matchup. Current state of the game, Armored Kossars also do pretty decently. Kossars themselves quite cost-effective. I mean, generally, Nurgle's one of those factions where you will see bladed values from healing, but still, everything pretty much pays for itself, which is nice to see. And maybe it would have been better to bring out the Caster and the sleds a little bit earlier, and just to reinforce that center objective to try and hold, rather than trying to go after all 3 objectives simultaneously. But it must be said, this is Red Salamander's first, or one of his first Domination games ever, his first practice session, so he definitely did very well for himself there, all things considered. And Palanquins did good, the Nurgle Forsaken did awesome, Plague Toad's also fantastic here, Nurgle Cultist also amazing, as you should know from my video. That video is actually kind of blowing up right now as I'm recording this, but anyway, Rotfly is also a big fan of in this matchup. The Beasts of Nurgle, sometimes they don't do a lot, but they're enough to just be annoying, and that's okay. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching that one. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching. See you next time.